Hey everybody, welcome back to the Tales of the Pod podcast. My name is Kayla, I'm your host.
And I'm your co-host, Nick. How's it going, guys?
So, this week we're going to be talking about classic horror movies.
Yes, we are.
Which we classified this as, I think it's greater than 30 years old, is that what we said?
Yeah, so nothing made after 1994, essentially.
Yeah, and we actually recorded this episode already, but it recorded without sound. So, we're going to try to re-record it.
Yeah.
And it was a good episode, too. I'm kind of pissed. So.
We were doing good.
We were doing good. We didn't mess up. We didn't do anything. So we're going to try to re-record it. Bear with us if we mess up on some things. It's the second time we've gone through this. So
yes,
just bear with us. But yeah, we'll probably count down our top, I think it's top 9.
Yeah, we picked 9 movies to start to talk about.
And keep in mind, too, we try not to talk about the same movie twice.
Yeah.
So my actual list for favorite horror movies or classic horror movies might be a little different than this, but we try to not talk about the same thing twice. We try to bring up new movies.
Yes, that we've
new
seen.
Content.
Yeah, to give you guys ideas on movies to go find it for yourself.
So it's not just the same old every single week.
Yes, yeah.
All right, if you want to take it away with your number 9.
Okay, so for my number 9, I picked 1932's Gothic horror film, Vampire. So this one was directed by Danish director Carl Theodor Dreyer, and the film was written by Dreyer and Christian Yuell, based on the elements from Sheridan Le Fran's 1872 collection of supernatural stories in a glass darkly. So essentially this movie, it's kind of cool how they did this movie because it's got like a little bit of the silent movie, so there'd be like the title cards and everything like that playing, but also they would be talking in it too, but very
minimal.
Rarely, very minimal dialect.
Which I think is so creepy when there's no sound or no talking. It's so unsettling.
Yeah, and this is a pretty creepy movie too, so just a quick run through the plot. This guy, Alan Gray, arrives at this old inn in this village of Contemporary, and or Pieri, I don't know how to say it, Contemporary.
Sounds French.
And he rents a room to sleep, and in the middle of the night he's woken up by this old man in his room, and he's giving him this note. And then eventually he's trying to figure out what's inside, what this note means and everything like that. He's going around asking these people in the village and everything like that. He eventually finds his way to this abandoned castle where he encounters the old man that gave him the note, but the old man is then shot to death right in front of him. And then so from there on, the mystery kind of deepens, and he ends up wandering into the castle, and there's this bear in there that's basically kind of trying to, like, become a vampire or do something along the lines of, like vampiristic tendencies. But there's also, like, ghosts and stuff in this movie, too. It's like a haunted castle type of thing, and it's really, really neat. I really like the movie. It's kind of a slow burn, and it's creepy, though, because it's, like, very, I don't know, it's just the way it's shot. It's, like, not black and white. It's, like, that gray and white, or, like, brown and white. It's not, like, your typical, like, Dracula movie. And it's a lot more creepy, and, like, it's more the Nosferatu kind of vibe than it is, like, the Universal Pictures version of Dracula and everything like that. Yeah, and it's not, it's just very creepy. It's got a very creepy effect, and it's very, like, disorienting, too, sometimes, just the way it's shot and everything. It's definitely a neat film, and I definitely recommend it to anybody that wants a good, like, classic vampire movie that's not a Universal picture.
Sometimes that's better, like, the more, like, unsettling vibe is nicer than, like, the classic jump scare every 5 minutes.
Yeah,
it's nice to have, like, a little uncomfortable, unsettling movie.
Yeah, it's definitely just kind of eerie. Like, when you're watching it, it feels very eerie.
You feel very off watching it.
Yes. So that's my number 9 there.
My number 9, I picked a movie that came out in 1932, and it's called Freaks. And I think this movie, just, like, looking at the poster, like, it definitely would not fly in 2024.
No, definitely not.
And the thing is they used it was all about circus people, and back then, if somebody was born with, like, a congenital abnormality, like, without legs, or like the bearded lady or whatever. They were made, their only job was to be in a circus. Like,
yeah,
they
essentially.
weren't given any other opportunities than to be basically made fun of and be poked fun at.
Right.
So this movie is kind of about these quote-unquote freaks taking their revenge and coming back at society for being so mean to them throughout the years.
Right.
And even the movie poster, it says, can a full-grown woman truly love a M-word, which means a little person?
Mm-hmm.
And that's just so insulting to these people.
It really is.
It's crazy to me, but what I love about this movie is how appalling it was for the time.
Yeah,
everybody was so shocked by seeing these disabled people on television, and they were like, women were saying, "Oh, this movie gave me a miscarriage." Like,
it's just
it was so appalling, and it's like, I mean, I guess for the time it would be considered pretty violent.
I don't know. I mean, it really wasn't even that violent. I think it's more the fact of like, I don't know.
That's what makes me question, like, do people not like it for the violence, or they don't like it for the simple fact of, this is what we did to these people, this is what we did to them, you know?
Yeah, I think it's more the fact of, like, these, you know, the circus people are taking revenge and, like...
on, like, quote-unquote normal people.
Not normal people, and I think that was, like, the problem they had with the movie. It was, like, you know, that shouldn't be a thing kind of thing. Like, they should just not do that.
Yeah. And another thing I love about this is how it was... basically directly remade into American Horror Story. I think it was season 4.
Oh yeah.
Circus was like directly a remake from that and brought it to more of like a modern light. Like if this would have happened in like the 60s or 70s ish.
Sure.
But yeah, I love this movie. I love when movies have all this lore around them and everyone's like, "Don't go see that. It'll make you like." Have
They did a really good job with the marketing for sure.
Don't go see
and
it.
It was kind of hard. I remember that was kind of like hard to find too for a while.
I think it still kind of is.
Yeah, I think HBO had it on there for a while, and you could watch it, or like Showtime or something like that. One of those apps had it. I don't think Shudder ever had it on there.
But yeah, they have a man that has like just his upper torso, no legs. They have conjoined twins. They have whatever they used to do to people when they would like drug them up and they make them like the chicken in circuses.
Yeah.
And then they like throw food.
Yeah, they would just be like all drugged up and like acting a fool basically, and
which is honestly
it's
horrific.
Horrible. Yeah, that's just
what they did to these people.
Terrible.
So sad.
I know, it really is. But yeah, definitely a good film. I definitely really liked the way it was shot and everything like that too. And it kind of gave them like a voice, the circus folk, you know. Like, this is like, we're sick and tired of like being treated like this. We're humans too, you know.
And I want to see, because after the woman came out and said, you know, this movie gave me a miscarriage and she was going to sue MGM, they cut the movie down from 90 minutes to just an hour. And I guess those 30 minutes of footage are just never to be found again.
Yeah, there is like a lost
it's like lost footage, lost media. Nobody knows where it is. Nobody knows what happens in that.
I know. I'd like to, like, and they did a good job cutting it out because the movie kind of just... Yeah, flows. It's not like it's just like missing a chunk of, 30 minutes is a lot to cut out of the film.
I agree. Yeah, box office bomb. It was given an X rating.
Yeah, definitely for the time, I can imagine so.
Of course, it was banned in the UK because they banned everything.
Yeah, the UK always bans any movie that's got any kind of rating above an R.
But yeah, definitely a cult classic. I'd go give it a watch. I think it's on HBO now or maybe Tubi.
You could probably find it somewhere on the internet as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely a good film. Good pick there. Alright, so for my number 8, I picked 1978's Magic, which is an American psychological horror drama film, and it's directed by Richard Attenborough and stars Anthony Hopkins and Margaret and Burgess Meredith. This is a really neat movie because it involves a ventriloquist dummy, and he's very creepy looking. He's got the piercing blue eyes, and kind of looks like Slappy's brother from Goosebumps, so it's kind of comedic to like look at him and be like, oh yeah, I've seen him in Goosebumps, basically. But it's follows this guy Corky, who's played by Anthony Hopkins, and he's got this ventriloquist dummy, Fats, and he's kind of like becoming a huge success with this Fats because Fats is like very just the way they do their routine and everything is making them like kind of climb the ladder in the showbiz industry in New York City. For like late night clubs and everything like that, comedy clubs or what have you. But eventually you kind of just watch Corky's mind just kind of deteriorate, and he keeps, and you kind of see Fats like taking control over his mind and everything like that. And Burgess Meredith plays his booking agent, and he's seeing this too, and he's like, why don't you take some time off and everything? You're already a huge success, take some time off. So he ends up going up to the Catskills to reunite with his high school crush, and what ends up happening is he kind of just has a psychotic break and ends up killing the husband of this girl that he had a crush on back in high school, but it's actually really Fats who killed the husband. So the dummy's essentially alive. He's actually the one committing this. I don't know how that all happened and everything, but the dummy's actually alive, and he's killing. They never really tell you why the dummy's alive and everything like that. And he's killing the people, and then. So Burgess Meredith's like, okay, I gotta go look for him now because he's been away for like over a month. He said he was called, he's not answered his phone, so I want to make sure he's okay. So he tracks him down, and essentially what you come to find out is it's really Fats isn't alive at all. It's just Corky has been his mental health has just completely suffered.
Plot twist.
Yeah, and he's the one been killing these people, and he killed the husband and everything like that. And he ends up killing the girl too, and it's just a really sad movie. Just watching his mental health deteriorate and everything like that. It's definitely a good watch. Anthony Hopkins does a great job performing as he always does. I mean, he's just a great actor. Did pretty good at the box office too. It had a $7 million budget and $23 million at the box office, so they did definitely well on the movie and everything like that. And he actually voiced the dummy too, Anthony Hopkins.
That's cool.
Yeah. And Burgess Meredith obviously does an amazing job anytime he's in a movie. He's such a fantastic actor, and just a really great all-around movie. Very creepy. It's definitely more of a psychological movie for sure, and it's definitely a classic. I mean, it's timeless, so you go and watch it anytime and just be like, oh, it's such a good movie.
Every time I hear like a ventriloquist puppet referred to as a dummy, I always think of Slappy when he's like, who you calling dummy?
Who you calling dummy?
And it feels wrong to say dummy. I feel like I've been scolded by Slappy.
Yeah, but definitely a good film. Definitely one that stands the test of time, in my opinion.
Okay, so for my number 8, definitely a movie that I think stands the test of time. I picked Poltergeist from 1982.
Oh yeah, that definitely does.
What's so crazy about this movie to me is that it was written by Steven Spielberg and directed by Tobe Hooper.
Yeah.
I just feel like those are two huge icons. I mean, Tobe Hooper did Texas Chainsaw. Steven Spielberg did, obviously, so many great movies.
Yeah.
And the horror genre, specifically Jaws.
Yes.
But if you haven't... E.T., I guess it would be kind of scary. I feel like kids were probably scared of that.
E.T.?
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't think E.T. was that scary. I thought Close Encounters of the Third Kind was kind of freaky.
I've never seen E.T.
Have you seen Close Encounters of the Third Kind?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, you should watch it.
I don't think I've seen E.T. I think I've seen Jurassic Park and Jaws, Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
That's
yeah, Saving Private Ryan. You probably didn't watch.
No, I'm not a fan of military movies. But if you haven't seen Poltergeist by now, what are you doing with your life?
Yeah, you really should go watch this movie. And it blows my mind it got a PG rating because it was terrifying. Like, this is not a movie that, like, I would show, like, a 10-year-old
kid. That's what I was going to say. Is, like, most of a lot of the, like, ghost acts or violence are towards children.
Mm-hmm.
Like, a lot of it revolving around children. And usually that gets you a higher rating in the movies, but this one, it's just a PG-13
rating.
But essentially it's this family, and they built a house on top of a cemetery. And so the whole house has what's referred to as a poltergeist, which means the whole house is haunted by multiple spirits, and it just kind of causes mayhem on the entire family. And it has the iconic line with, what's her name, Carol Ann. When she's sitting by the TV and it's all staticky, and she goes, "They're here."
They're here. Yep, everybody knows that line.
Like, even if you're not even like a horror fanatic, you know "They're Here" by Carol Ann.
And fun fact: poltergeist means noisy ghost in German. That's where it comes from.
Yeah, I would say the first one's the best. We watched the third one not too long ago, and I wasn't impressed. It felt very, like, rushed and whatever, because I know the actress...
Oh, the third one there? Yeah.
The actress that played Caroline was sick then, so it felt very rushed and, like, pieced together and trying to make money off the name. Nothing compares to the first one. The first one's the best that there is.
Yeah, first and second one, especially the second one. The guy that plays that Kane dude in that, he is so creepy. Like, he is nightmare fuel for sure.
Yeah, but what an iconic just addition to to like a genre, especially this time period. I feel like 80s was so much just slasher vibes.
Yes.
And for a poltergeist, like paranormal movie to come out would be just so against the grain at that time, I feel.
I definitely agree with you. I mean, there were like a few, but definitely like this probably was like a huge hit.
Movie.
Yeah, the like ghost movie of the 80s.
Especially
for sure.
being endorsed by such a big name as Spielberg.
People are
going to go see it. Like, even if they're not into scary movies, they're going to go see it.
Yeah, Steven Spielberg did what? Yeah. Even the guy that did E.T.?
Yeah. It's not like...
Well, E.T. came out before or after this? Oh, that's a good... This came out in 82, right? I think E.T. came out after.
So he would have directed this movie, I guess, but he was contractually unable to direct another film while he made E.T. So he's making E.T. while he made this.
Oh, so he just wrote the story.
So he wrote the story, and then
okay.
he must have like leased it out to Tobe Hooper.
Gotcha. Okay.
And Tobe Hooper was based because of his Texas Chainsaw work, obviously.
Yeah, definitely.
But I guess Spielberg wanted it to be like more of a sequel to Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Like,
really?
I guess what he said.
But
Tobe Hooper ended up directing it, so who knows?
Tobe Hooper's like,
what kind of creative
liberties
he took? Because obviously he takes a lot of creative liberties in his work.
Oh man, that's hilarious. He's going to make it a sequel to Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
I guess that's what it says.
I don't know how he would have done that. I would be kind of curious to see. He should do that. He should remake it and make it a sequel to Close Encounters. That would be very cool.
I don't know. I just work here. That's what it says.
No, I know. I'm not arguing with you or anything. I'm just saying that would be very interesting to see.
I know it's weird that he should just waited. Like if you're under contract and you can't direct something at the same time, just wait. Like, if you want to make something that badly and you believe in it, just wait.
I know, just wait.
E.T. would make it taken maybe 1-2 years. I mean.
Yeah, that was a huge success for him.
Huge, yeah. Bask in that success and then do whatever you want to do.
Yes, yeah. All right, well, yeah, good pick there for your number 8. So for my number 7, I picked 1970s The Dunwich Horror. So this is a supernatural horror film directed by Daniel Haller, and it stars Sandra Dee, Dean Stockwell, and Ed Begley. So for all of you horror nuts out there, this is obviously based off of H.P. Lovecraft's story by the same name, The Dunwich Horror.
That's what I saw now.
Yeah, Live, Laugh, Lovecraft. This is a Roger Corman film, so it's a B movie. So it's not like the greatest movie, but it's definitely a classic, and it's cool that this is, I think, probably one of the first times they actually did a rendition of an H.P. Lovecraft story. Obviously, you have like Reanimator, and then you have like the Brian Yunza and Jeffrey Combs movies and everything like that came out in the 80s and 90s that are based off H.P. Lovecraft as well. But this one's cool because it kind of basically directly follows the tale of the Dunwich Horror. So just real briefly going into that. And it's cool because it's all set in the Miskatonic University, and Arkham is made up town, kind of like how Stephen King made up Derry. H.P. Lovecraft made up this town, Arkham, Massachusetts, too, and this university that's not real either, called Miskatonic University. And it basically the movie starts out, there's Dr. Henry Armitage, and he's giving a lecture on this very rare book that he owns. It's the Necronomicon, which H.P. Lovecraft also, kind of pulled from the Egyptian Book of the Dead and all these different, dead rights texts of ancient societies, and made his own kind of, Necronomicon in his mythos. And there's this man there, I'm sorry. There's this man there named Wilbur Whateley. I forget how to say his name. It's like Wilbur Whateley. And he basically is trying to use the Necronomicon. He's there to steal it basically and use it to contact the Old Ones, which were a race of beings that lived here on planet Earth in the mythos of H.P. Lovecraft very, very long time ago. And they were a race of some sort of, interdimensional beings, let's just say, and they're living here on Earth, but they're not in our dimension, let's just say it like that. So he's trying to use this book to contact them and bring them into planet Earth. And so he steals the Necronomicon, and then he's also got this he finds this woman, Nancy, who's played by Sandra Dee, and she kind of is hypnotized by him because he's got he's doing these mind control things to her, and he brings her back to his house, And the house is like this weird gothic kind of castle. It's very like, not castle, but like kind of like Victorian mansion type of thing. Like I guess it's like a gothic mansion. Very creepy, weird place, and she's kind of like under his spell, and so she's kind of like forgetting things and like wanting to stay longer with him and stuff like that. And he wants this, obviously, because what he's trying to do with her is he's trying to sacrifice her to bring these the old ones in, and through bringing the old ones in, he'll be able to contact the outer gods, which are through, it'd be like Cthulhu, Nyarlathotep, Azathoth, like the gods from the Cthulhu mythology, and the ones that, don't care about human beings at all. They just think we're flies, essentially. So yeah, that's basically the gist of the movie. What ends up happening at the end is he doesn't end up successfully doing the ritual. The professor comes in and saves the day and everything like that. But what's weird too, because you kind of get a little backstory too, because he had tried this before, their family had tried this before on his mother, trying to birth these old ones, and they're actually like the vessel to bring them in. They're like get pregnant by these things and they birth them into Earth. Yeah, it's very, very H.P. Lovecraft. That's all I gotta say. It's definitely an interesting movie. It's definitely a classic. It's a slow burn. It's a Corman movie. It did, I guess, okay at the box office. There was no budget for the film that I could find, but it did $1 million at the box office. So I'm sure, people like me that love H.P. Lovecraft went and saw it.
If you can get past the plot.
Yeah. No, the plot's a good plot. It's just it's a B movie.
Yeah.
I definitely would love to see in the near future some great director I don't know
remade it.
Yeah, remade it or did an actual Cthulhu, Call of Cthulhu movie, one that doesn't suck,
Yeah.
It doesn't just suck. I don't know, because it'd be very, very interesting to see with modern CGI and how they could make Cthulhu look and Azathoth and.
Well, I think there's a lot of legalities and things like that.
Yeah, I think the society.
Lovecraft's family is probably
Yeah, well, I think all his work is owned by, there's the H.P. Lovecraft Society. They're actually the ones that published all his work in the 60s. Nobody really knew of H.P. Lovecraft, because he wrote all of his stories in, the 20s and 30s and, 1900s, and no one really knew about him until the 60s when they started getting published, more frequently and everything.
He's probably dead by then, was he?
Oh, yeah, he died in 1936.
Yeah.
He wasn't dead. He died young, too. I know, it's a shame, because he was an abhorrent racist, too, but he was such a good horror writer. But yeah, he was
kind of puts a damper on
things. I know, it really puts a damper on things, but such a great horror writer. So yeah, that is my number, what are we at, 7 now? Yeah, 7. My number 7.
Alright, my number 7, I picked Candyman, which came out in 1992, which I can't believe that's greater than 30 years ago, but it is.
Right.
Barely, but it is. I think this is such an underrated slasher movie. It kind of missed the mark of the slasher era. I will say it's a little bit later in the slasher, when everything was thriving and it was Freddy, Jason, Michael, whatever.
Sure.
But I just think that Tony Todd puts out such a great performance as Candyman.
Yeah, he does.
It's such a unique character. I mean, there's so many aspects to it that make it so unique. It's got all the ingredients to be a good slasher movie, but for some reason it just doesn't get the same hype.
I think because it just missed, like you said, it came out a little bit too late.
Yeah. Because it's weird, because then Scream comes out a few years later, and that was just reviving the slasher era.
Well, I think because that was completely different than just your typical.
It's hard
this
to
was kind of a little
like
different too.
Different.
Yeah, it definitely was different.
It's a unique concept. Usually, slashers, they just come out of nowhere. They get you when you're most vulnerable. Candyman, you bring him on, you summon him.
Yes, exactly.
It's like Bloody Mary or whatever. You sit.
I know, and especially too with it being directed by Clive Barker.
Yeah,
because he did Hellraiser.
Yeah.
I mean, Pinhead's an icon, and Candyman. I think nowadays he's an icon for sure.
I think at the time it wasn't as much.
I don't think so either.
I think it was scary, but it's not.
It wasn't
as well regarded as other movies.
Yes, I agree.
Which I don't agree with, and I think Tony Todd does a phenomenal job acting.
Oh, he's a great actor.
One of my favorite things about this movie is that he said every time he gets stung by a bee, he wants to be paid an extra $1,000 because the bees that he had to put in his mouth for that one scene and he says like Helen or something, and he has a bunch of bees in his mouth. Those are real bees. That's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
CGI or whatever. Because in the '90s, CGI is not.
Oh yeah, it doesn't look
it
that
wouldn't
real.
look like that.
Yeah, it would not look real at all.
And I think he made like $3,000 off of it. He only got stung like 3 times.
Yeah, he made something like that. Yeah, I forget.
But yeah, I like. I also like the remake that Jordan Peele did in like 2019 because it's basically a direct sequel. It's about
yeah, that was good too.
Candyman and Helen. They have a kid together, and then he goes on to be like the new Candyman or whatever.
Yeah, essentially, that's exactly what.
But yeah,
happens.
he's such a unique character. I mean, he's got the hook for a hand. He's got the bees. He's got the lore around his name. Like say it 5 times in the mirror. He's got the cool jacket.
Yeah, it's almost like folk horror.
Yeah.
In a way too.
And he's pretty brutal. Like, he's pretty violent when he kills people.
And that's like kind of a typical Clive Barker thing too, because that's how the Cenobites in Hellraiser come. You summon them, like Candyman. You summon him. They don't. They're not just there, existing. You summon them. You bring them into your world, basically. Yeah. Which I love that idea for a horror movie. You're responsible for your own demise, essentially.
Yeah. And there's a lot of like social commentary around Candyman, so I'm not sure if that's why it wasn't as well regarded.
Who knows?
Like, there's things like police brutality and things like that.
Yeah, it could have been.
Which should be discussed and should be talked about. I think in this movie it's done in a creative way. It's not like to the point where where it's the whole movie. I think it's done in a creative way and it makes you think.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you there.
And it puts it on the spectrum, but I don't understand. But I think it's a great movie. Definitely go give it a watch. I would watch the first one, and I would watch the new Jordan Peele one, which is not considered a classic because it's newer, but...
Sure. Yeah, no, it's just cool how they do, like you said, it's like a direct sequel, essentially. They did do, like, Candyman 2 and 3, I think.
They did, but, like...
I don't know if Clive Barker had a hand in any of those, though. I would definitely recommend the first one, for sure.
I don't know if that was Tony Todd. They did Candyman, Farewell to Flesh, and then Day of the Dead.
I think Farewell to Flesh had Tony Todd in it.
Yep, that had Tony Todd, and then the other one...
I don't know if that one did.
Day of the Dead. Yeah, Tony Todd's in all.
Oh, he was in. Okay, I haven't seen that one.
And Clive Barker.
Oh, really? He did direct.
Oh no, it said based on characters by Clive Barker.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think he had anything to do because I don't think he had anything to do with.
And like the third one didn't even get a theater release.
Oh, really?
It was direct to
VHS.
Yeah.
Yeah. That doesn't surprise me. That what kind of happens. I think that's like the same with like the Hellraiser franchise. He did like the first 3, and then after like the 4 through 8, they were all different directors doing them.
But I will say I'm glad that it ended up in the hands of Jordan Peele because I think he has such a high regard for like the horror genre and everything. He did it so well.
No, I definitely agree with you.
It ended up in his hands rather than whatever the fuck the guy's name is of the Halloween trilogy.
I don't even know his name. Yeah, I hear you.
But I'm glad it ended up with Jordan Peele.
Well, good pick there. Definitely a classic for sure. All right, so for my number 6, I have another ghost movie from the 80s.
Dun dun dun!
So this is 1982's The Entity, and this is a supernatural horror film.
Would it be really bad if I went kind of lollipop right now?
I don't care. Can you grab me a beverage too, please?
Oh, you want?
I have I'll take a Murphy's. Okay, so where was it? So yeah, 1982's The Entity. So obviously this is a ghost movie, a supernatural horror film, and it is directed and written. Directed by Sidney J. Fury, I think is how you say it, or Fury.
And it stars Barbara Hershey.
Yep, it does star Barbara Hershey. And so, obviously, for all of you people who don't know, Barbara Hershey plays, what's his name, Josh's mom?
She's Josh's mom in the Insidious franchise,
yes.
So Patrick Wilson.
Patrick Wilson's mother in the Insidious franchise. And so this movie is, I definitely would not recommend this movie, because it is very violent. And
it's a huge trigger warning.
Yeah,
if anybody's been ever assaulted or
anything. So this film centers around this woman, Carla Morin, who is being violently molested by an unseen entity.
Yeah.
Some sort of poltergeist is assaulting her in her house, and it's cool. Definitely a cool idea for a movie. Kind of been done, I think, in the Hell House, Legend of Hell House movie that came out in 1973, that idea.
But this is a true story.
This is a true story. I was going to say, this actually is a real thing. And it's kind of sad because as you go through the movie, you kind of watch all this happening, and she's like going from, psychiatrists to doctors to scientists and everything, and the doctors are saying, no, that's impossible. You're just crazy, and then the psychiatrist, there's this one psychiatrist even says, like, this is like some psycho manifestation of the lust you feel towards your son. And it, like, just
Probably
really, it's all men doing
Probably
this.
a man.
And it's just really sickening to just, like, this poor woman's just being, like, discredited, time out and time again. And still, all these attacks are still happening.
And could you imagine just being thrown around every night by a ghost?
Yeah.
No one believes you.
Yeah, and her son seeing it happen to her and stuff like that, and, hears it happening. He can't, like, he doesn't see it, but he hears it, like, he can't get to her because, like, the door's locked and everything like that. And it's really sad. I feel bad for the poor woman that this really happened to, but it's kind of also left up to you, the viewer, because it hasn't really ever been, like, proven or disproven, so it's kind of like you to take it with a grain of salt. Like, was it all psycho, like, in her head or anything like that, or was it a real entity? But in the movie, they make it's a real entity.
Yeah.
It actually is something, but it's not a typical entity like you or I would think. It's actually, she ends up finding this scientist who believes her. Someone finally believes this poor woman. And he wants to try to catch this thing because he thinks it's something, like, he wants to prove there's, like, life after death, essentially. But what they end up catching is, like, more of just this life force. It's not even a bodily entity. It's something. It's not like a ghost of a dead person that lived in the house. It's just like this energy, and it's almost like alien in nature. So what they do to catch it is they set up this huge room. And they have, like, a model of her house in it, like kind of, it's like a house, kind of tricking, because they obviously think it follows her, so they put her in there, and it's encased in glass, and, or some sort of, material that's impermeable, and what ends up happening is they have these, liquid nitrogen sprinklers. So they're going to try to freeze this entity, and obviously there's a safe room for Barbara Hershey to get to, so she doesn't die during all this. So she ends up making it to the safe room, and they end up catching this entity, and it's this massive, like, blob of... I mean, you don't see it, it's just because it's frozen, it's all like ice, but it's gigantic. It's, like, the size of, like, like, probably the whole room almost. I mean, it's huge, like, or one of the rooms, one of the rooms that she's in, and it's just insane how big this thing is. And then it eventually, like, thaws out because it's not going to stay frozen forever, and it ends up, it's kind of a sad ending because it ends up following her back home, and it keeps happening to her. But eventually it goes away. At the end of the movie, I think it says, like, the real person that had this happen to them continued to have these events, but eventually it subsided. So then it leaves you again. There's that question: was it all in her head? Was it something? Was there something psychologically going on here, or was it actually an entity that just got bored and left her alone after a while?
Yeah.
Very violent movie. I definitely would not recommend this to, like, anybody that has any triggers, any trauma, anything. Yeah, but it did pretty good at the box office at $13 million off of a $9 million budget, so they definitely made some money off of it. But yeah, very, very violent movie, and
I'm sure most people
weird
want to go see it because they're probably just like, man, you have to see this plot. Like,
it's definitely like, what the hell? Like, and it's based on a true story too, so that probably got a lot of people to go as well. But it's definitely a classic. It's kind of hard to find nowadays. I think HBO
at one point.
HBO did have it on for one point, but you could probably find it somewhere else.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely go watch 1982's The Entity. Definitely a good one.
All right. So my number 7, I picked The Hills Have Eyes, which came out in 1977 and was directed by our Lord and Savior Wes Craven.
Yes,
Why are you laughing? He's our Lord and Savior.
No, I know. It's just funny how you say that.
Wes Craven was our Lord and Savior. R.I.P.
You say that about, like, everybody.
I use it sparingly. I use it on him and Jessica Lange, I think, was the only 2 people.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyways, so The Hills Have Eyes is such a different, like, unique movie because it's like, I mean, it starts off typical where it's a family doing a road trip. They kind of get lost. They are in Nevada, I believe.
Yes.
So they kind of end up in the middle of the desert with car issues, which starts off like normal. Usually you're waiting for a slasher to come take them out. But what's different about this movie is where they end up in the desert, there's this group of people that were exposed to so much radioactive material during the atomic bomb testing, that they're all disfigured and not mentally with it. They're cannibals. They're like just what happens when you get exposed to radiation from birth onto adulthood.
High levels of radiation exposure.
Yes.
I mean, it's really a statement. What are we doing? Hang on,
sad.
we should think about what we're blowing up here.
And it's cool because in the beginning of the movie, it makes it like it's a real case. Like there's like newspaper clippings of babies growing like 3 eyes or their heads all messed up, and it's like this is what happens when you expose somebody to radiation.
Yes. Yeah.
And essentially these radiated creatures that are like half human, half I don't even know, hunt down this family one by one and kind of just feed on them while they're in the desert.
Yes. Yeah.
Because they live out there in the middle of nowhere, so obviously they turn to cannibalism.
Right. Yeah. They have to get food somehow.
But yeah, it's a good watch. I love the remake too. I think the remake is equally as good.
Yeah.
If not, I mean, obviously Wes Craven did the first one, but I think it's equally as good
for
a remake.
The same guy, Alejandro Aja, who directed High Tension, he did the remake, so I mean that just goes to show right there how great of a movie it's going to be.
There's some freaking balls to the wall scenes. Like,
yeah, there is.
I remember the dad gets captured. He's like the first person to get captured, and they're like, "Where's Dad? Where's Dad?" And they look, and Dad's like tied up, being burned at the stake. And I was just like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
Like, what am I watching?
I know, right?
But it's a good movie. Like I said, it's different. It's unique. It's like, how do you really kill these people? You can't reason with them because they're so far gone.
Right,
there's nothing you can do. So you can't plead. You can't beg. You
they
can't
don't. They look at you as just food, really.
Yes.
Or like a wild animal. They don't understand that you're the same person.
Human,
you're both human.
And they probably have some sense of them being like, "This is what you did to me. You did this to my family." Maybe some sort of revenge.
Maybe that could be in there as well.
They're in their revenge era. But essentially, I mean, the plot is to try to escape from the desert without them killing you.
Yeah.
But it's like that's their home. So
sure.
It's a good movie. It's a good like cat and mouse kind of movie with a unique concept, I would say.
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
Very well done.
Yeah, I like how the people, the bad guy, I guess, bad guy, and this is.
And you sympathize with the bad guy.
Yeah, you kind of do.
Like, they don't know.
Yeah, exactly. They have no idea.
But definitely worth a watch. I'd say the original and the remake are both worth a watch.
Oh yeah. So for my number, are we on 6 now?
Yeah.
I forget what
I
we're
was
on.
6, 7.
6. Okay, so for my number 6, I picked 1979's sci-fi fantasy actually, horror film.
Ooh.
Phantasm. So this film was directed by Don Coscarelli, I think is how you say it.
Sounds Italian.
And it's the first film, and I think there's 5 Phantasm movies, 4 or 5. I only watched the first and second one, because it kind of came out like weird, like very far apart, too, So it's not kind of going to be like the same character group of people, But essentially, this is definitely like a huge classic film. I mean, this is definitely on everybody's, top 100 horror movies.
Yeah.
It's just, it's chiseled.
We have the bubble up here on this blanket.
Yes, we do have the tall man right there. But essentially, it starts out with this kid, Mike, it starts out with this kid, I think his name is Billy, getting stabbed. Tommy, Tommy's getting stabbed by this woman that he's having sex with in a graveyard, but it actually ends up being the tall man who's the undertaker for the cemetery. He can shapeshift.
Okay.
And so the next morning, they're at, Tommy's friends Jody and Reggie are at his funeral, and Jody's 13-year-old brother Mike is spying on them at the funeral in the bushes. And so they're having, they're lowering the casket into the ground and whatever. Everybody leaves. Mike's still there spying. He sees the tall man take the casket out of the ground, picks it up by himself, and puts it in the cart. So he, runs out of there. He's like, what the hell's going on? Why is he taking the body? Goes and tells his brother, Jody, and Jody's like, no way, I don't believe you. You're just a little pipsqueak, get out of here. So Mike's, kind of determined. It's kind of got that classic, 80s, young kid trying to figure out what the heck's going on in this little town. Definitely a Stranger Things kind of vibe. So he starts to investigate. What he ends up finding out, Mike, is that the tall man is actually an alien that is using the dead of Earth to basically turn them into dwarfs and send them off to his home planet to be slaves and help him build like an army or something wild that. Definitely wicked sci-fi plot right there. I mean, that just sounds out of control. It's a great movie. They end up, Reggie and Jody, they end up finally believing Mike, and they try to go and kill the tall man and everything like that, figure out, what the heck's going on and everything. And there's just these crazy things that happen. Mike ends up cutting off the tall man's fingers, and the fingers come to life. They turn into these mutant bug things, cool. And then the tall man's also, essentially kind of like the Thing. And then the tall man's in Mike's dreams. He's in Jody's dreams as well. And there's obviously the iconic scene of they're in the mausoleum, and then one of the silver balls with the 3 knives on the end is chasing Mike around. And then there's some guy in there, and the guy gets the silver ball to the face, and blood's just going everywhere. It's just an iconic scene. But yeah, definitely a good, timeless film. I love watching, especially around Halloween time. It's got a killer soundtrack, very creepy, just an awesome movie. Yeah, like I was saying earlier, how they were kind of spread out. The sequels, so Phantasm 2 was made in '88, which wasn't too far after. So was the third one came out in '94, and then the fourth one in '98, and then there's the newest one that came out in 2016. So they were kind of spaced out quite a bit, But I definitely would be curious to see what the new, the ones in '98 and 2016 bring, if it kind of all goes to the same story, if it's trying to do something different, Because I believe in the second and third one, it is with Mike still. He's obviously older now, but he's still trying to, figure out what's going on there at Morning Glory Cemetery. But yeah, that's my number 6, is 1979's Phantasm.
Okay, so my number, so I was counting, which is the reason I thought we were on number 5. Okay, so my number 6, I picked Psycho, which came out in 1960. Mm-hmm. I think Psycho, it paved the way for so many horror movies that we have now.
Yes.
We wouldn't have so many movies now that are considered pushing the boundary in 2024 if it weren't for Psycho back then.
Oh, I definitely
paving
agree.
The way and
yep.
Getting rid of all the taboo things that people don't want to put in movies, I would say.
Right.
Yeah, if it weren't for this movie, we wouldn't have anything that we have now, and it's such an iconic movie. I say that someone's Norman Bates at least once a week if they have a weird relationship with their mom. It's giving Norman Bates vibes.
Right.
And sometimes people don't know what I'm talking about, and I'm like, you need to go to college, get an education. I don't know what else to tell you.
I know, right?
But I just think that's just a common thing that people understand. But
right.
Jamie Lee Curtis's mom being the star of this movie, Alfred Hitchcock directing it, writing it. I just think it's such a feat to the Hollywood music or movie.
Oh yeah, you got so many iconic scenes. Obviously, the
shower thing. I quote that all the time. Yes.
And then you have the end where they finally, find the mom.
They turn her around,
and she's this corpse sitting in a chair, and it's this is
They're
out of control.
Bates?
Yep.
And they turn around and it's not her, and
or where he comes out in the bedroom and he stabs that guy walking up the stairs, and he's obviously he's not really falling down the stairs, but it looks like he's falling down the stairs.
Oh, and the effects are
the effects. It's Alfred Hitchcock's effects. Man.
It's hot chocolate syrup is blood because it was black and white.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It looks all thick and.
I know, but at the time too, it's you could get away with that stuff. What did you have? The birds and everything like that too. With him, the birds, he did a very good job with those, in my opinion, for the time.
I just think it's such an iconic thing, and it's still. It's referenced to this day.
Oh, for sure.
And I don't think it's going anywhere. It's really. I think if you're talking about a movie staying the test of time, I think Psycho has definitely stood the test of time.
God, yeah.
It's been 64 years.
Yep, 64 years.
That's insane.
I know, that really is insane, man.
They pulled so much from Ed Gein, too, the serial killer, if you know anything about Ed Gein.
Yeah,
they pulled so much from him, but did it in a safer Hollywood, classier way, I guess, because Ed Gein was a really sick fucking dude.
Yeah, I know, especially for the time,
too. You can't put a lot of that stuff in movies, so I think they did it in the best way possible.
Yeah, the stuff that he did, you could not, in that time, make a movie about it. Yeah.
But I think they did it so well.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Definitely a classic for sure.
If you haven't seen Psycho, go watch it.
Yeah, if you haven't seen Psycho, you shouldn't be watching this podcast.
Yeah. But I feel like when you watch it, you're like, oh, okay, that this movie did you watch it and you'd be like, oh, newer movies I've seen, oh, they must have pulled that from Psycho.
They referenced it or something.
Or they whatever. Like, so many things make more sense once you've seen Psycho, I feel.
Oh, for sure.
Because so many movies look up to it as like the saving grace.
I definitely agree with you. Definitely.
Yeah. If you haven't seen it, close out. Go watch it and then come back.
I know, right? All right, so for my number, what are we at, 5 now? So for my number 5, I picked 1964's The Masquerade of the Red Death. So this is Roger Corman directed it, and it stars Vincent Price, but it's also a retelling of Edgar Allan Poe's 1842 short story of the same name, Masquerade of the Red Death. So essentially, the movie is about this baron who's played by Vincent Price, Prince Prospero. I guess he's a prince, and he's a Satanist. And he kind of rules the village, and the village is all afraid of him because they think he brings on this plague known as the Red Death, like, the bubonic plague. This is like the Red Death. It's essentially a plague that kills everybody.
That was the Black Death, wasn't it? The bubonic plague?
Yes, it was the Black Death. But this is the Red Death, and they're all like kind of, fearing Vincent Price's character, Prince Prospero, because they think he controls this because he's the Satanist, he's the rich person. So he kind of uses it to like his advantage to get things from the town folks and everything like that. And then the town folks end up realizing he really doesn't control it. It's just like something that he comes and goes. He's just not affected by it for some reason. He doesn't really control it. Yeah. But eventually, the townspeople kind of catch on to that. They kind of start to retaliate, and then what ends up happening is like the ghost of all the people that have died, and him using it as as a cover, to get things that he wants from the villagers and control the villagers and everything like that. They come back and they kill him, and that's really essentially what the Red Death is. It's kind of like an allegory for something.
Metaphorical.
Yeah, it's metaphorical. Very, very good movie. Again, it's a Corman movie. I love watching this movie around Halloween time because just the feeling of it and the vibes are so good.
I know, there's so many movies that I'm like, this just fits the October.
And it's a gothic horror film, so it's like that. There's castles and it's Vincent Price too. I mean, he's my favorite actor of all time, Vincent Price. And he's perfect for the role. He's perfect in every Edgar Allan Poe rendition. He's just the guy that you want to have doing it, So yeah, that's my number 5, The Masquerade of the Red Death.
Alright, so for my number 5, I picked Rosemary's Baby, which came out in 1968, which I know we've talked about here on this podcast before, but I think we talked about it in a sense of the cult in the movie, rather than the actual movie.
Sure.
But essentially, God, when I'm in my head, I'm getting ready to explain this plot out loud, and it sounds so balls to the wall when you speak it. This woman, Rosemary, she's pregnant, and they move into a new apartment building, and essentially her husband and her new neighbors have this plot to sacrifice her baby to or have her baby be the new Antichrist.
Yeah, she's going to be carrying the Antichrist.
She'll be carrying the Antichrist, essentially. So the whole movie is her being something's wrong, something's going on. Her husband just gaslighting the fuck out of her, not listening to her, and then at the end there's this huge satanic ceremony, and then we don't see her baby in the crib, but we kind of see him.
Yes.
And it's such a cool scene because Rosemary looks at the baby and she's like, his eyes! What happened to his eyes?
What did you do to his eyes?
Yeah, what did you do to his eyes?
And then the iconic line, God is dead, at the end of the movie. They're all yelling, God is dead, God is dead. It's super iconic, and it's definitely the classic that has stood the test of time.
I agree. I've heard some people say that they don't think it does, and I think, if anything, the idea of forcing a woman to give birth is more prevalent now than any other time in history.
For sure.
And I think everybody should see this movie, and the fact that it came out in the 60s is just so ballsy.
No, I know.
To have this cute little Mia Farrow, cutest little pregnant person ever, and she's literally birthing the Antichrist.
I know, it's insane, man. And Roman Polanski did a really good job directing that, too.
He did a great job. I think it's a slow burn, but I think it pays off.
Oh, it's definitely worth the watch, for sure.
I would pay to see it for the first time again, because I wonder if I pick up on the cues and be like...
Sure.
what are they in on? Like, what are they doing? I mean, obviously you're not going to guess that they're birthing the Antichrist, but
yeah, the first
when
time
you're first
that,
watching it, you're like, is it paranormal? Like, what is happening here?
yes, yeah.
And it just spirals out of control from there.
Yeah, it definitely kind of reminds me, too, of that movie, The Sentinel, that we talked about on here with Burgess Meredith. And, there's a lot of famous people in that one, too.
Yeah.
But, it's definitely the same kind of vibe, for sure.
Definitely recommend. Definitely a, like, standalone movie in this era, I would say.
Oh, yeah. Early, late 60s, definitely, man.
And it's kind of had a resurgence in modern times because I think, what's it called? With Sydney Sweeney.
Oh, Immaculate.
Immaculate with Sydney Sweeney, and then The Omen Part 1.
Part 2.
Part 2, I'm sorry. Touch on these same topics, and if we didn't have something so groundbreaking back in the 60s, we wouldn't have those movies now.
Yes, yeah, I definitely agree. I think they definitely, like, paved the way for, like, movies, like you said, like The First Omen and...
as soon as I saw Immaculate, I'm like, this is Rosemary's Baby vibes all the way.
Yes, yeah, Immaculate for sure. That definitely reminded me of Rosemary's Baby's vibe. Just, like, her getting pregnant out of nowhere, like, not knowing how and everything. Definitely the Rosemary Babies vibe.
Great movie.
All right, so for my number 4, I had another Roger Corman film, and guess what? Another Vincent Price, and guess what? Another Edgar Allan Poe rendition. That's The Fall of House of Usher. The Fall of the House of Usher, I'm sorry. And obviously this is another gothic horror film directed by the man Roger Corman and stars Vincent Price. So Vincent Price plays, what is his name? Roderick Usher. And it's basically the story of this guy, Philip Winthrop, who's traveling to the House of Usher that's somewhere in Massachusetts, I believe, to get his fiance, I forget her name too, Madeline Usher, to get her to, basically they want to get married and he wants her to move to Boston with her so they can get married and everything. So when he gets there, he's greeted by the caretaker, the caretaker, and he's, invites him in and everything like that, and then Roderick Usher, who's played by Vincent Price, comes downstairs and greets him, and, Philip tells Roderick, of his intentions to, finally marry Madeline and take her away, and, Roderick was not too happy about that. He's like, no, she can't go anywhere, she's very sick, like, she needs to stay here, she's got to be, around family, that's what he's saying, at least, and, he's like, I won't hear any of this, the Philip guy. He's like, let me see her. So he sees her, they're all in love and everything, and she doesn't look sick or anything. She's definitely not sick. Excuse me. She's definitely not sick or anything. And she, they're all like lovey-dovey and everything like that. And he tells her, like, come run away with me. But she's even like, no, I can't. I'm sorry, And it's kind of like, very like Stockholm Syndrome. You can tell like that Roderick's got his influence over her. So they kind of like banter back and forth throughout the movie, Philip and Roderick. There's a lot of like, I'm taking her and everything like that. Well, Madeline ends up dying, and she's not really dead though. And Roderick's like, no, she's dead. Like, we have to bury her, kind of. So he puts her in a coffin in the family mausoleum. And then Philip's like, I can't believe this. What's happening? And Roderick finally confesses to him, like, basically, like, we have a cursed bloodline. This house, why you see it's in such shambles is because of all the horrible things that we have done. And it's, like, basically, we're cursed, and this curse is, like, taking everything from us.
Gotcha. And
Madeline's really not dead. Roderick's basically buried her alive because he's, like, just so far gone, thinking, like, the curse is going to be the end of the Usher bloodline and everything like that he wants to, like, kind of quicken it.
Yeah.
So Philip ends up rescuing Madeline, and they kind of escape, and they, end up going back to Boston. But as they're riding away, the house in the background just sinks into the ground. So there was definitely something cursed and freaky about, the Ushers, but definitely awesome. This is definitely my favorite movie to watch at Halloween time because it's super, just the colors that Corman uses, the gothic, the textures and everything. It's just it's so cool. And there's a scene too where Vincent Price is like trying to play this lute, and he's really not playing it. Like, it's obviously he's not the one playing it, but it's just such an iconic scene. I love it, and it's such a good and a classic film. And I love when they do these Edgar Allan Poe renditions too in the film. I mean, they're just timeless movies. So yeah, that's my number. What are we on, 4 now?
Yeah.
Number
or
4.
Number 3.
No, you're going to be on number 3. Oh. What am I on? Yeah, this is number 4.
Okay. So my number 3, I picked another Hitchcock. I picked The Birds, which we kind of talked about earlier.
Oh yeah.
But it came out in 1963, and it's actually based on a short story under the same name, same concept. It came out in 1952.
Sure.
But essentially, we have our main character. Her name is Tippy, and
Tippy.
She kind of goes to this, like, I would say it's like an island. It's right on the water, and all of a sudden these birds out of nowhere just start attacking people, and they're just out for blood. Like, they're absolute savages. And she has this really iconic scene where she's in a phone booth and she's kind of trying to call for help, and they just attack the phone booth.
Oh yeah.
And she looks so scared, like the fear in her eyes.
Oh, I love that scene.
Honestly, it's such a unique, smart concept, because if birds were one day just to decide we don't like humans, we would be screwed.
I know, there's so many birds.
And they have the advantage of, like, they can come through the window.
Yeah,
right
they
now,
can fly.
like,
They can fly. Like,
oh yeah,
they have definitely an advantage over us.
Absolutely screwed. This is almost like a sci-fi movie. Like, if birds were to,
it kind of is science fiction.
Yeah.
I definitely get the vibe. It's not really a horror per se. You know,
we don't really find
Sci-fi
out why
horror, I
they get this, like, thirst for human blood all of a sudden, but
yeah, I know. And I don't think there's anybody that actually dies in the movie. They just, like, attack. Like,
they just attack.
But I mean, it can cause people to end up dying.
And our main character Tippy, at the end, she becomes, like, catatonic. She's just in so much shock.
Yeah, like what? Yeah, exactly.
And she's just laying there, just, like, not responding to anything. And her boyfriend or whoever that she's with goes and gets their they had pet lovebirds, which I guess for some reason lovebirds are the only birds in this movie that don't attack.
Right.
They go and they take them home.
I know. But, yeah, actually, the mom who, Rod Taylor's mother, you know, like the house they go to and they fly down the chimney and everything like that, she's actually Miss Daisy from Driving Miss Daisy. She's the mother.
I gotcha.
In The Birds of Rod Taylor.
Oh, I guess that was intentional, that they have the unexplained bird attacks.
That
kind of makes it scarier.
Yeah, because, I mean, it could have happened like that, too. Like, all of a sudden, you just, like, all these birds just start attacking, you know?
Yeah,
like, what could cause that?
And one of the best things about that movie is the actress, Tippy. She went on to do another movie about animals.
Oh, yeah.
Like, 10 years later. It was called, like, In the Wild or something. And, but it was with lions and tigers, and they were completely untrained.
Yeah, they were real tigers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because the birds from the movie The Birds were untrained. There was no animal trainer on set. It was kind of just balls to the wall. Whatever they did. It was in the film. And then she, 10 years later, made a similar movie without any animal trainer or anything, and it's the movie that has the most single-handed injuries and deaths of any
Oh, yeah, I can imagine having a tiger that...
And it's like, did you learn your lesson with the birds?
Yeah, I know,
that you need an animal trainer on set to be like, you do this, you do that. Like, no, he's angry, don't go near him. Like,
I know. It just makes, it makes you wonder. You can't fix stupid, I guess, right?
Poor Tippy.
Yeah, poor Tippy. Alright, so for my number...
2.
Nope, number 3.
Oh.
I picked House on Haunted Hill. So another Vincent Price movie, except this is not a Corman film. This is William Castle. So, yeah, this is definitely the epitome of a horror movie. We talked about this on here, I'm sure, a bunch of times, especially with, like, the iconic scenes and everything. But essentially, it's Frederick Lauren, who's played by Vincent Price. He's an eccentric millionaire. He's having 5 guests over to this haunted mansion on a hill. For his wife's, Annabelle's, it's actually his 4th wife, so this is his 4th wife's birthday. And he's promising everybody $10,000 if they can last 12 hours in a haunted house. And he wants to see, how people will act, if they see a ghost, essentially, is what his guise is in this movie. And Alicia Cook Jr., he plays this drunk that he's kind of like was the caretaker for the house at one point, and he knows the house is haunted, and he's very like, we're all gonna die essentially. He's just doing it because maybe he'll live, because he lived one time when he spent the night there, so he's like, maybe I could do it again essentially. And it ends up really not being a ghost movie. It's kind of more of like a crime movie, but there's obviously the iconic scenes that we've talked about, like the woman on the skateboard in the basement when she gets up and says, did you hear it? And she's right behind her, like, a witch-looking lady that floats out, and it looks like she's on a skateboard just kind of skating away. And then obviously the hanging scene, all that, and then it ends up being a crime movie because it's like one of the guests there is having an affair with Vincent Price's wife, and they're plotting to kill him to get all his money because he's a millionaire.
Right.
He ends up finding out, kills both of them, but then another plot twist. House is really haunted, so everybody in the house is going to die. So that's how they leave the movie, because I love it. Alicia Cook's like, I can hear them now. They're coming for us. Soon they'll come for you. And he looks at the camera, and then you hear them maniacal laughing and everything. Just a classic movie. Stands the test of time. I'll fight anybody. Definitely the best horror movie.
You heard it first, folks. We'll fight anyone that says otherwise.
Yeah, House on Haunted Hill. It's got to be the 1959 one, though. It's definitely...
Yeah, not the 2000s one.
Well, those were good, too. I like those. It had, Ali Lauder in it. It was definitely that 2000s, they definitely did, the modern take on it, for sure. But, yeah, definitely a good movie. And it's just timeless. I'll watch this at least once a month. I'll put this on to watch it, because it's just like a comfort movie.
Yeah, I have a few of those.
You know what I mean?
Speaking of comfort movie, my number 2 is The Exorcist.
No, you're on your number 3.
No, I'm on number 2.
I have 2 more to go.
I only have one more.
What? How did that happen?
I don't know. But anyways.
Alright, I'll skip one of mine then.
My number 2 is The Exorcist. Speaking of comfort movies, came out in 1973, and it's another movie, I guess, if you haven't seen it, why are you here kind of thing. I think it's had, similar to Psycho, it's had such an impact on movies. It was so appalling for the time.
Oh man, that movie, people were
there's
vomiting and
things in this movie that
fainting.
Are, even nowadays, people don't touch.
Yeah. Yeah.
To this day, they haven't been redone and then still been so critically acclaimed and done so well in the box office and things like that. If somebody were to come out with the crucifix scene now, it'd be like, what the hell? Get that off the TV.
Or her coming down the stairs,
the crab walk.
Oh my god. And yeah, it was the uncut version or something like that.
Or the things that she says coming out of a 12, 14-year-old girl's mouth.
Oh yeah, especially in 1973 too.
Oh my god,
people were probably just so appalled. I wish I should ask somebody. I bet you my Aunt Linda remembers. She would have been a teenager at that point.
I wish I would have paid money to been there in the theater when
this movie
me
too,
came
man.
out.
I would have loved to have.
I'd give my life savings to be there when this movie came out and just see the people next to me being like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, you're fainting or just
fanning themselves.
Yeah, oh my god, or jumping and so just scared.
Yeah.
And because really, honestly, it's not that bad. I've seen a lot worse.
I agree, but the thing is I've seen a lot worse, but to do so well and be such a well-regarded movie and still have such dark things in it is not an easy thing to do. We've seen worse in Terrifier or whatever that we've seen.
I know that.
Lawyer things, but to do so well and be such a highly regarded movie and have such crazy things in it is crazy.
No, I understand that. I don't think it was really highly regarded at the time, though. Is what I'm saying. I think nowadays it definitely is.
I don't know. It did. The budget was $12 million and it did $441 million.
Damn.
It did really well.
Well, I think that was the marketing, though, because it was
a huge part of this movie was the marketing. People were saying, it
it's
gave me a heart attack.
Yeah, people were passing out, people were vomiting in the theater,
I don't know.
People were walking out because it was so bad. I think they really played a big... That should be studied in marketing classes, because they definitely marketed it perfect.
I agree, and I think we didn't see marketing like this again until Blair Witch Project, who also did marketing really well, but... having ambulances outside the theater ready to take people away is crazy to me, and it's... it was the only... I think it was well-regarded, because it was the only horror movie to be nominated for any awards.
Oh, really?
It was nominated. It didn't win, but it was the only horror movie back then to be nominated for any awards.
Yeah. Okay.
I believe it was the first horror movie to be nominated for any...
I thought Rosemary's Baby was nominated for something.
No. Exorcist was the first one.
Really? Interesting.
And then the first one to win would be Silence of the Lambs, which I guess is debatable whether it's really horror.
That's crime horror.
Yeah.
That's we just watched that one. 7.
Yeah.
Or Fallen,
But yeah, Exorcist was the first one to be nominated, which is crazy.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's a great film, I'm not saying, but I just don't understand.
I forgot about that part too, when they do her, they do some kind of medical procedure. They put that long needle in her head.
Oh yeah, they do the Spinal Tap thing.
Spinal Tap.
Yeah.
People were passing out then, trying to figure out what was wrong with her. And fun fact, the guy that did the Spinal Tap went on to murder his girlfriend.
Oh yeah, he did end up killing somebody. I remember he told me
he was an actual like MRI tech or something.
Yeah, because they used like real people.
They wanted to be as real as possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely.
Yeah, who did that? Was William Friedkin was the director, right? And
Yep.
Then, yeah. And then they did two more, The Heretic, and then Exorcist 3.
Not as good.
But William Peter Blatty, who wrote the first Exorcist, directed the third one, and that one was supposed to be really good. The second one was it was more of like a crime though, because it had George C. Scott in there and everything, and it was a good one. I liked that one. The second one I really didn't like. That one was kind of just like they were trying to make a sequel off a movie. I don't think that had William Peter Blatty or William Friedkin doing it.
Yeah, it actually had a lot of nominations. It had Best Picture, Best Actress, Best Directing, Best Sound.
She definitely deserves a freaking Oscar for that.
Didn't win anything, but
that's a shame.
Best Picture, Best Director, and it's one of the most profitable horror movies. I think it was the most profitable horror movie ever made, and then the next one was Paranormal Activity. Was the next most profitable.
Yeah. Well, I thought Blair Witch Project. Because the marketing on that was crazy.
Maybe, but I know Paranormal Activity is, I think it's the most recent.
Sure, I definitely agree with you on that. On the most recent, for sure. That found footage type of dealio.
But yeah, definitely, I mean, go give it a watch. It's been a month since you've seen it. Probably go watch it again. You know, you forget things. You forget the crucifix scene. Gotta watch it again. But there's a lot of lore and, like, spooky stuff and curses surrounding that movie, too. So much went wrong. So many people were affected negatively by that movie. So it's cool to see like how much they went through and still came out on top.
Oh no, I definitely agree. Yeah, definitely a classic for sure. I mean, I don't think that's definitely in like my top 10 recommendations for anybody that wants to start watching horror is watch The Exorcist, because that'll make or break you if you want to keep watching. I was going to say, horror. I don't know if you would start something with that. No, I definitely would start somebody with that, because if you want to see something horrific, that's horror right there.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as a supernatural horror film goes, I mean, if you want to get into like snuff revenge films, then that's a different topic. But
we don't endorse snuff revenge films.
So for my number 2, I picked 1981's Ghost Story. So this is a movie directed by John Irvin, and stars Fred Astaire, Melvin Douglas, Douglas Fairbanks Jr., John Houseman, Craig Watson, and Alice Craig. Alice Craig, she's been in a couple films. Since then, I don't know about any of the other guys. I just know Alice Craig, she was in Silent Hill in 2006. But it's based off the 1979 novel of the same name by Peter Straub. So essentially, this is definitely a classic for me. I remember watching this movie. I made my grandma get it. I made my grandma rent it from the library because it had an R rating, so I could watch it on VHS. Yeah. Wow. Oh, she didn't care. I mean, but essentially, it starts off with these. It's about these 4 elderly men. They're probably like in their 80s, 90s. Oh, I would say 90s. Probably like 70s, 80s. And they like all get together and tell ghost stories. They got the little hats on and everything like that. They tell ghost stories and whatnot. And what they really don't understand, though, is that they all have a true ghost story of their own. So what ended up happening was back in the 1920s, they ended up killing this girl by accident. It wasn't like anything like, sinister or intentional. And they hit the body. They put her in her car and pushed the car in the lake. Only she wasn't dead. And she's like banging on the window, like, help me, help me, help me. And they kind of didn't do anything, let the car sink to the bottom. They saw her and everything. So she's come back from the dead as a ghost to basically kill them off one by one. And one of the guy's sons actually kind of falls in love with her because she's real enough to she's not like a ghost in the sense of like, just like knocking on the walls and everything. You might see her once or twice. She's like walking, she's almost like a zombie, but she's like also a ghost at the same time.
Apparition.
Yeah. So he kind of like falls in love with her, and then he ends up realizing that she is the girl from her, his father's troubled past that they ended up killing. And so they're trying to like kind of put her soul to rest. It's a really great movie. I definitely really recommend this to anybody that wants kind of like a. It's not really like a. It's kind of like a love story almost,
Yeah,
in like a weird
story.
way. Yeah, it's a really weird way. Like somebody that would like doesn't want anything too crazy. Like this would be a good one. But I'd like to read the book too. I have not read the book. My dad's read the book and he says it's very good. So I'm gonna have to read the book as well. It did pretty good at the box office. $23 million off a $13 million budget. Almost broke half, or almost made double. You know.
Yeah.
So. That would be nice. But yeah, definitely go watch this. This is a really good movie. Definitely one of my favorites for a classic because it's just a timeless film. And I think it's definitely one that could get somebody really into horror as well because it's spooky enough, but it's not crazy enough at the same time.
Not like balls to the wall.
Exactly. So yeah, that's my number 2.
What'll be your number 1? Because we had to get rid of one, remember?
No.
I only have one left.
Oh.
So,
well, I'm going to do number 1.
Okay. So, for my number 1, I picked Carrie,
Okay.
which came out in 1976. I know I said earlier that Wes Craven is our Lord and Savior, but I also feel that Stephen King is as well.
Yeah.
And this is based on a Stephen King novel under the same name. And essentially, our main character, Carrie, who is so brilliantly casted by Sissy Spacek, I think she is Carrie. Like, I think they remade it in, like, 2012, and I just think that nobody else can play Carrie but Sissy Spacek.
I definitely agree with you. She's got those eyes that, like, make it pop.
She does so well with this. But basically, Carrie, she's, like, relentlessly bullied in high school, and while she's being bullied, her mom is, like, a crazy religious maniac.
Mm-hmm.
And, Carrie gets her period while at school, and the girls are all, like, making fun of her because she doesn't know what it is. She thinks she's dying because her mom's crazy and never told her anything.
Yeah, never taught her about, becoming a woman, essentially.
So she goes home, and the mom's basically like, oh, you're a whore now, like, you're the devil.
Yeah, it's your fault. Yeah.
It's your fault because, Eve and all that shit, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, while the story is progressing, Carrie is kind of having these abilities pop up, like telekinesis kind of things.
Yeah.
Like she would think something into existence, and then it would come into existence.
Yes.
So she's going to the library, she's trying to read up on these abilities and trying to be like, what is happening to me?
Yeah.
Obviously, she can't talk about it with her mom, because her mom will think it's witchcraft.
Yeah, it's devil worshipping and all that. Yeah.
So the bullying gets to the point where her gym teacher steps in and is like, you're going to go to prom with the most popular guy in school. And she does, and he's actually quite a sweetheart.
He is, like, I think, genuinely, likes her, and he's not doing it to be a douchebag.
Yeah, he tells her she looks pretty, like, it's very good.
Yeah, brings her flowers and stuff, yeah.
Well, some mean girls, they rig the election, so she wins prom queen.
Mm-hmm.
And she's up there, she's having her little moment with her flowers and her crown, and they pour pig blood on her.
Yeah.
And you can see in her face just, like, something switches.
Oh, it's such an iconic scene. It gives me goosebumps thinking about that scene, because it's just like, she's literally seeing red, and like she's gone at this point.
Gone.
There's no more Carrie. There's this.
She was the sweet young girl, and then they bullied the shit out of her. And then at prom, there was a little bit of her left. Like she was all excited to be there, and they just ruined it. So she tears down the entire gym in this really iconic scene. She closes all the doors.
Yeah, this is all psychokinetic too. I mean, she's doing this all with her.
She's not lifting a finger at all.
Yes. Yep.
And then she basically burns the gym down and kills all of them. And the girl that poured pig's blood on her, they kind of escape, and they're driving away, and
that's my favorite scene.
Carrie's like standing in the middle of the street like this, and they kind of try to drive at her, and she flips the car over.
I know, I love
with her mind.
I love it. Like she's just walking down the street covered in blood, and they're like, they see her, John Travolta and the girl, and she's like steps on it trying to hit her, and Carrie just like turns around, and like just her turning around, the car flips over. It's just like, oh my god, it's
so
perfect.
Iconic.
It's such a great scene.
And then she goes home and she basically locks her mom in a closet. House gets burned down. Both of them get burned down. And really iconic scene at the end. This girl that was nice to Carrie went to her grave and sets flowers on it. And while she's setting flowers on it, Carrie's hand comes up from above and like grabs her. And the girl's like, ah!
Yeah, that's a definite jump scare at the end.
It's a huge jump scare. I would have loved another movie. I would have loved to see in theaters.
Oh my god, I know. I wish I could go back in time.
But
that was Brian De Palma that directed that, right?
Yeah.
He went on to do Scarface too, which is such a jump from that to Scarface to that, or Carrie to Scarface. It's such a different style of movie.
Yeah, definitely my favorite classic horror movie. I love it. Such a queen. I love her.
I know, she is badass. So, is Serpent in the Rainbow, which came out in 1988, and this is a Wes Craven film.
Shout out.
Our Lord and Savior, right? And it stars Bill Pullman. And this movie is just, this is awesome. This is like fantasy horror with kind of like, I guess it really just means supernatural kind of realism, but essentially it's kind of based on a true story of this guy named Clairvius. I don't know how to say his name. Clairvius Nassisi, who was poisoned, buried alive, and then revived with an herbal tonic, which everyone thought he was a zombie because he was clinically like proven dead. Yeah. This is a real story, and then he was buried alive, and then people saw him like a few days later walking around. Yeah, so that's the essential, the myth around the story, I guess, or the story around the myth, I should say. So it's basically starts out with this man named Christoph, who's portraying this Clairvius guy that is now a zombie, yeah. And the pharmaceutical companies in America hear about how this man came back from the dead, so they send Bill Pullman down there, who is...
hey, how'd you do that?
Yeah, like trying to basically figure out how they made a man... Yeah, well, clinically dead, how they made him clinically dead, like where a doctor... agent that basically...
Yeah, you keep talking.
Okay. There's a paralytic agent that... I'm just going to start over.
No, keep going.
No, because you just got interrupted. Was it not recording?
No, it was recording. I just stopped in that moment.
Oh, geez, now I got to really restart. All right, so for my number one, I picked 1988's American fantasy horror film directed by Wes Craven and starring Bill Pullman, The Serpent and the Rainbow. So, this is loosely based on a nonfiction book of the same name by an ethnobotanist, Wade Davis, where Davis recounted his experiences in Haiti, investigating the story of this man, Clairvius Nassisi, I don't know how to say it, who was allegedly poisoned, buried alive, and then revived with an herbal tonic, and he was produced as a zombie, essentially. So this movie is basically a retelling of that account. But with obviously a Hollywood twist. So it stars Bill Pullman, and he's this pharmaceutical representative who's down in Haiti trying to figure out how this man could have been clinically proven dead, signed off by a doctor, and then now alive, walking around. But he's in kind of like a stupor. He's not really with it still. And then it just basically kind of goes balls to the wall. There's this huge mystery. There's a lot of voodoo presence, obviously being in Haiti, and there's this guy, I forget his name, what is his name? I don't know, I can't remember his name, I'll find it, but essentially there's this guy that's kind of like a voodoo gang, he's like part of this Haitian voodoo gang that's basically doing all this, and he's a short little black guy, and he is so creepy, he is just thing of nightmares, and he's basically controlling this thing where they're doing this to people and like basically taking their souls but leaving the body to kind of be a vessel, and he's like eating their souls essentially, or using their souls to basically ascend to a higher level of existence or a higher level of being.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy. I mean, there's some iconic scenes in here where, like, Bill Pullman he's having a dream even before he gets to Haiti, and he sees the short little black guy, and he's, like, laughing at him. He's like, I know you're coming for me, essentially, like, mocking Bill Pullman. And then he gets there, he meets the guy, and he's like, I know him from somewhere, but he can't place it. And then, like, he had another dream where he was, like, buried alive, and there's this snake like wrapped around his neck and everything, this huge python, and it probably was a real python, knowing Wes Craven and everything.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's like the most iconic scene where once he like kind of figures out he gets the formula from the guys that are, for this paralytic agent that's, I think scopolamine is what they use nowadays for paralytic agents, but this is like a precursor to that. he gets the formula and he brings it back to all like his buddies in Boston and everything like that at the pharmaceutical companies. They're all having dinner, celebrating and everything, and like you think he's in the clear. He got away from all the craziness and everything, but he didn't even really leave Haiti. He's just having a wicked hallucination from this drug that they gave him, and they're all sitting around the table and they're laughing, and then like this executive's wife's like laughing at this joke Bill Pullman just told, and she just takes a bite out of her wine glass and just starts chewing the glass, and you're like, what? And then like their hands come out of the plates and like hold their face down like on Beetlejuice and everything. Just super iconic film. I'm just rambling here. You got to go watch it. It's just pretty crazy. It's definitely a timeless classic. Definitely, I think Wes Craven's best work.
That's a bold statement.
Yeah, well, I mean, just as a standalone film, not as a franchise, I think this is definitely his best work. Yeah. I mean, it will just make you be like, well, what the F? What's going on? Yeah. It's like scary because it's voodoo and
that's real.
I mean, voodoo is real, man. Oh, yeah. Like I don't care. Like they do some stuff. They know how to like
do things.
They're on a whole other level than normal religions. They have practiced and they've succeeded in what they practice.
Long time.
Yeah, for a very long time.
Yeah.
And definitely would recommend this movie. So that is my number one.
All right. Well, until next week, guys.
Stay spooky.
Stay spooky.
You just gave up. Those last